Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the mindfulness. It's a good idea. And mindfulness, like you were saying, is just present moment awareness on purpose without judgment. So everybody close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. Otherwise, you can leave them open, but just rest them gently on a space in front of you without moving them around or engaging in the environment. Notice how your body is still in this moment. Notice the weight of different aspects of your body. So maybe how your feet feel, your legs. Notice your back resting against the chair if it is. The position of your hands. Maybe one is warmer than the other. Notice the feeling of the air on your skin. And in mindfulness, we're not trying to stop our thoughts or control our thoughts. We're not trying to control our breath. We're just noticing. So anything that you choose to focus on is called an anchor, A-N-C-H-O-R, anchor. And that is what helps ground you into the present moment. And so oftentimes we use our breath because you always have it. And if you don't, then you don't need to worry about it. You have bigger fish to fry. So focusing on your breath, just watch your body breathing. And a million thoughts will likely come into your head. I'm not doing this wrong, or this is uncomfortable, or I'm hungry, or what did I say earlier? What will I say later? Just that monkey mind of chatter, chatter, chatter. And that's fine. Just notice it. And then noticing is the good stuff. Just realizing that you're lost in a thought or a sensation or a feeling and coming back to that anchor point over and over and over again. That's what makes your ability to focus and your ability to direct your attention stronger. So one last time, if you were lost in a thought, bring it back to your breath. And on your exhalation, open your eyes and return to the room. All right. So my internet has been randomly going out at noon every day. I don't know why. I got some kind of new device that will hopefully fix it. If that's the case, our lovely intern Hannah is here and she will pick up where I left off. We did the 7 assumptions the first session. We did a chain analysis last session. And today we're going to do pros and cons and options for solving a problem, I believe. And remember, these are standalones. You don't have to watch the other ones to get what we're going to talk about today. Because it was so disjointed and I stopped recording and started 12 times. I've not got that one up on YouTube yet, but I will probably just re-record it because it was such a cluster. Okay, so we're using our handy dandy notebook. And pros and cons is something that they kind of just lightly go over as a homework. Well, I guess they do it in the book too. But it's a skill that is useful in just all facets of life. In the book, it's a little bit confusing, so I will break it down a little bit more directly today. So let me show you. Now, pros and cons in DBT is a little bit different than your typical pros and cons. So I still haven't figured out how to write on this without being so close to the screen. So instead of making your typical like pros and cons list, where like I want to have a hamburger for lunch, what are the pros and cons? You do pros and cons, but you do it for both the positive and the negative. So I want to have a hamburger for lunch, or I don't want to eat anything for lunch, or I want to eat pizza for lunch. So you can have like 7 columns to show the different pros and cons of various choices in any given situation. So let's say pros and cons of staying in the job that I have now, or quitting to take a 1-year hiatus. Or you could say staying in the current job, quitting, or trying for a promotion, or moving to a different company. What else could we do it on? Pros and cons of staying in a marriage or getting divorced. Pros and cons of using skills or not using skills is one of the big ones that we do in the book. So what is the benefit of doing a chain analysis? So should I either do a chain analysis on the situation or should I not? Should I go for a walk and try to do some self-soothing, or should I not? Let's just do, since we just did mindfulness, let's do the pros and cons of doing mindfulness. So what are the pros of doing mindfulness practice or not? And so it's always going to basically be the difference between change versus staying the same. And you really want to outline both the pros and cons of both changing and staying the same, because we often forget that staying the same, there are pros to it, right? It's almost always the easiest. You just keep on doing what you're doing. You know how to do it. You know what to expect. You know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be like today, which was like yesterday, doing the same thing that we've always been doing. It's easy. It's predictable. You may get certain fringe benefits out of it. Like, so not doing mindfulness, you don't have to, maybe you can kind of stay in denial a little bit. Reality will maybe not smack you in the face as hard as it would if you did mindfulness. So you'll often notice that there will be a connection between these two. The pros of staying the same are similar to the cons of changing, and the pros of changing are similar to the cons of staying the same, but it won't be exactly the same. So, and we can fill it out in any order. So a con of mindfulness is that you might realize some difficult truths. If you start doing a mindfulness practice every day, you might realize, like, oh my goodness, like I am on my computer 12 every hour of the day. Oh, that's unpleasant. But now that I'm noticing what I'm doing, and I'm noticing my urges, and I'm noticing my responses, I realize, like, what's really going down. That's a con.
Take time. Take time out of your schedule.
For sure. Oops. It takes time. It's hard. It's confusing.
It can be uncomfortable at first.
It can be very uncomfortable. A lot of times too, when we talk about the pros of just using any kind of skills, so maybe we're talking about using assertiveness skills or grounding skills or distress tolerance skills to calm you down. One of the cons is that people might expect more of you.
That's true.
Like, oh, now you're this Zen, chill person. You need to be that way all the time. You're never allowed to throw a fit anymore because you're in treatment, or because you're using these skills, or because you know how to calm yourself down. Why aren't you calming yourself down? Some of the pros of mindfulness are, and again, this is how it will usually always work out with different skills, is that you might get better. We don't know for sure. Like, you don't know. Looks like killer. Goodness. I don't even know why I bothered writing this stuff down. You might get killer. So you might get better. We don't know because you've never done this before. So you might get worse. That's a con of doing it, right? It might make it worse. I'm just going to stop even bothering with the chicken scratch and type it out for you. So to be mindful or to not be mindful, and then pros and cons. So to clearly say what we just said, the pros of mindfulness, you might get better, might improve life. You might decrease anxiety. And I
Might
can tell
reduce
you, so
pain.
say again,
Might reduce pain.
pain, yeah. And I can tell you there is I'm trying to think of words to replace my my cursing. There's a boatload of research out there that shows like, man, it works. It works for a lot of other people. It is very scientifically studied and proven, and there's some strong evidence and my own personal evidence, like mindfulness is the bomb. So yeah. So it might improve your life, decrease anxiety, decrease pain. And I'm just gonna tell you what the pros of it, they really are. It allows you to notice more joy. It allows you to have more gratitudes. It does bring you calm sometimes and eventually. It gives you the ability to focus more. Um, and you just live life on purpose. Live life on purpose. You have more, and I don't like the word control, but you have more choice. It gives you choice, and that's so huge because not being mindful feels like chaos. It feels like you're not in control, that you don't have choice, that your mind and your emotions are just, they run the show, and you're just this unwilling observer holding on for dear life. So not using mindfulness is chaotic. It's out of control. You don't have as much choice. Life passes you by.
You might never get better, or you'll never know what could have happened.
So you likely won't get better if you don't change anything, and you'll probably get worse. And so again, this goes for all the skills. You know, if you don't increase your assertiveness skills, you're probably not going to magically become better at being assertive. If you don't learn how to calm yourself down when you're having a panic attack or any kind of emotional attack, that's probably not going to pop out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, you're going to get enlightened through a dream and it's just magically better. You're probably going to not get better and you're probably going to get worse if you don't do something differently. But again, the pros of not doing this new skill, mindfulness, or any of the other ones that we're presenting, it's easy, it's known, it's not as scary. You might get fringe benefits. You know, if we're talking about using a grounding technique or distress tolerance technique, um, one of the pros of not using it is that people step up and do what you want them to do when you're throwing glasses at the wall. You know, like people will stop asking you to do the dishes if every time you do the dishes that you break the dishes. Like sometimes there are accidental fringe benefits that come from being a hot mess. Not that that's what you're doing it for in the first place, but there may be some contingency factors there that are kind of reinforcing that usually bad behavior. And again, the cons of it, it's hard, it's unknown. You can notice some unpleasant truths. It is absolutely uncomfortable. It is. I've never known anybody that is like, oh, mindfulness, it's zen and bliss and calm, and I don't have any like uncomfortable side effects. It is hard. It is an exercise, and it is very uncomfortable oftentimes. So remember that the point of mindfulness is not calm. It's not to calm down. It's not to be zen. It's not to find enlightenment. It's not to have peace. It's to gain the ability to direct your attention where you want to. Okay. So we'll get into mindfulness next time. And really like hit it hard and tell you what it is and how to do it and what the skills are and go over it in great depth. But this is really to show you how to do a pros and cons. And so getting getting all of the junk that is in your brain and all the bazillion thoughts about this that are hurrying and scurrying and just like in there like a hurricane and just vomiting them out on paper. It's like taking a junk drawer and just dumping it all out, sorting these are the pros of it, these are the cons, this is that, that's trash, that's an old straw, that's a rubber band, that's blah, blah, like just sorting and then putting it all back into the drawer in an orderly fashion so that you can kind of see. And you knew all this stuff already, but it was all jumbled up together. And so just sorting, understanding, and then maybe you will choose to do, the original thing. Maybe you will choose not to do something because it's too hard right now. Maybe you will choose to do it a little bit. Maybe who knows what you'll come up with after you do a pros and cons. But putting it on paper is a good way. It's also a good way to um, get your brain to just think and use executive functioning. So if you're upset, not too upset, but just if you're upset or kind of anxious about something, using your logic mind and coming out of that emotion mind will help to calm you down and get kind of on top of things.
Can I add a cheesy addition to your metaphor?
Hmm.
So when you have a junk drawer and sometimes it's all spilling out and you like cannot even shut the door back closed, so it's just chaos and it's just spilling out everywhere and it's just wide open and exposed. When you do the pros and cons and you put it on paper and you're organizing it, you bundle your pens together, you bundle your post-it notes together. It allows you to like shut the door, shut the
Yeah.
door, and not worry
Good
about it
point.
all day long. It's put away. It's nice
Hmm.
and safe,
Hmm.
where you can access it later, and then it's not like taking up your space during the day.
That's an excellent addition to the analogy. So, especially if you're having like racing thoughts in the middle of the night of like, oh, should I quit my job? Should I not? Should I try this new thing? Should I not? Doing a pros and cons, putting it on paper does allow you to take all of this and organize the junk drawer and say, you know what, it's on that paper. I've got it all down. I'm not going to forget any of this stuff. I'm going to look at it again in the morning. But it does allow you to kind of put it away. Good point. So this is all on page 27 of the workbook. They say the pros and cons of practicing skills or not practicing skills. That just means change versus stay the same. Whatever that change might be. In this case, it's using skills or not using skills, but change versus stay the same. And I think they put a pros and cons in every module.
I think they do too.
So it's a pros and cons of should you do mindfulness, pros and cons of should you use distress tolerance, pros and cons of should you do emotion regulation. Yeah, it is. But again, like the wording on it is just a little funky. The pros of staying mindless, judgmental, and ineffective, or the pros of practicing mindfulness. The cons of staying mindless, judgmental, and ineffective versus the cons of practicing mindfulness. Again, that just means the pros of staying the same versus the pros of changing. All right, pros and cons. Another one in the books. Let's look at options for solving problems. And then maybe we can get into a little bit of the biosocial model because I don't want to totally get into mindfulness yet because that deserves its own time period. Okay, on page 10. There are 4 or 5, depending on how you categorize them, options for solving any problem. This is not necessarily a skill in and of itself, it's just a truth, like the assumptions at the beginning. No matter what your problem is, one of 5 things is going to happen. If your problem is uh, having cancer, if your problem is a thorn in your foot, if your problem is not having a cheeseburger that you want to have for lunch, if your problem is dirty dishes, like from the most extreme, complicated life problem to the simplest day to day, I stubbed my toe problem. One of these 5 things will happen. And to me, that's very comforting. Like it takes away the like, oh my God, oh, there's so much. What's going to happen? One of these 5 things. Like we can categorize all, I don't really want to call them solutions, but all
inevitabilities or all
Yeah.
options?
Yeah. All results, inevitabilities will land in one of these 5 categories. That doesn't make it easier to choose which one of these, but just knowing that one of these 5 things is going to happen. So going back to our screen, because y'all may not have the book. All right, number 1. So for any given problem, say your boss is a real booger and is sending you snarky emails. The mean emails are the problem. So your first option, which is usually the most the simplest kind of, or the one that gets rid of the problem fastest, is to just solve the problem. So in this situation, we've got like rude emails. We could solve that problem by, and here you really like can kind of brainstorm. You can be assertive, you can tell them directly, you can break your computer, you could take your email program out, you could have a automatic reply, you could quit your job, right? So there's a lot of ways to solve that problem. So
And
you
those
could
are all
quit.
versions of changing the situation.
Exactly. You're solving it one way or another. Be assertive, um, steal their keyboard, uh, whatever. You could avoid it, leave it, get out of the situation for good. Some way or another, you're solving that problem. No longer do you have to deal with rude emails. Obviously, the probably healthiest one of that would to just be say, hey, I noticed that these are happening and they're rude and it's making me feel uncomfortable and I would like you to stop doing that, which is a dear man skill that we'll learn later. Another option is to feel better about the problem. Let's also add in here the rude emails make you annoyed. So you can feel better about it. This one is a little bit more difficult and it can feel, I don't know, inauthentic or invalidating. It's a lot to kind of swallow sometimes. But you could say, wow, this is helping me with my frustration tolerance. I'm so thankful to be getting rude emails so I can practice patience. And now maybe you really do feel better about the problem. Like it's not as annoying. You can like bless their hearts and not worry about it. Feel better about it. Actually think like, so these are things like, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, and steel is forged in fire, and this has given me an opportunity to practice my skills. And I'm so thankful that I'm getting rude emails because it means that I have this job and it's better than the other job that I had. Like you literally can change the way you feel about a problem. You have anything to add on that, Hannah?
Well, I was going to say, and everything in DBT has this dialectic of change or acceptance. So,
Mm-hmm.
number 1, solve the problem. That's the change piece. You can choose to go that
Mm-hmm.
way. The number 2 and number 3 and number 4 kind of fall into the category of the acceptance. I'm going to accept what this is. Maybe I'll teach myself to like it. Maybe I'll just accept that it's sucky and it is what it is.
Exactly. So 3, I think you're really saying, you're really pointing out what 3 is saying with tolerate it. You can just tolerate it.
Somebody said in the comments about having empathy. So yeah, having
Oh
empathy
yeah.
would be a really good opposite action
Mm-hmm.
for being annoyed by your boss. Like, man, bless his heart, he cannot export something into a PDF without my help. Like, bless it. I'm gonna have, I don't know, I don't know where I'm going with that, but you know what I mean.
No, I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about this going up on YouTube and like, hey y'all, we're from the South. Bless their hearts. God love them. Bless it.
Bless it.
His his sweet little soul doesn't know how to attach a PDF, and he's taking it out on me. So I'm just going to feel better about it and know that I am a more technically advanced person than him and feel sorry for him or laugh about it or whatever. That's all feeling better about it. Tolerating the problem is, well, it sucks and it's part of the job.
Yeah.
You're not really not being annoyed about it. You're noticing every time, like, dang it, there he goes again. This is crappy. I don't like it. And it's going to happen. I'm not willing to go through the hubbub of trying to directly address it, or maybe I've tried a million times and it doesn't work. I'm not going to quit. I can't get myself to the point where I empathize or I feel like this is a growth opportunity, or I can't change the way I feel about it. My brain is annoyed. I am annoyed. It sucks. I'm not going to do anything about it. So whatever. I'll just chalk that up to there's some things in your job that's going to suck, annoying emails, and this particular job is going to be one of them.
I take back what I said. Number one and number two are kind of more of the change because even in number two, you're changing how you feel. Number
Exactly.
three is the solid acceptance.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm not judging my annoyance. I'm not trying to change my annoyance. I'm not trying to change the situation. It just is what it is. Number four, however, is to stay miserable. This is where you obsess about it. Uh, you think about it all the time. You complain to coworkers. You obsess about it, complain. This shouldn't be happening. And I'm not going to do anything about it. And I'm not going to try to feel better about it. And I'm not going to tolerate it. Like, I'm going to add I'm just going to continue to stir the pot of my misery. It shouldn't be happening. Or I shouldn't be mad. Why am I mad? I'm so stupid for feeling mad. You're not even accepting your own reaction to it. So it shouldn't happen, or I shouldn't be mad, or look at how ungrateful I am. Like, you were miserable and you were staying miserable. And ooh, you can do that. It's an option. And they don't break the last one down into the fifth, but I think it should have its own. You can make it worse. So this would go back to some of those problem solving ones. Might make it worse. Like, you could punch your boss in the face.
Mm-hmm.
You could send back even worse emails. You could, oh goodness, there's just a million things that you could do to make it worse. And so one of these things is going to happen. You have chemotherapy or you have cancer. Solve the problem, go to chemo, feel better about it because this is going to teach you how to help other people with cancer. Tolerate it. It sucks and I don't like it, but this is the course that my life is taking. Stay miserable. Freak out about it, deny it, a lot of ways to stay miserable and then make it worse. That would probably be denial and not going to the doctor or trying to cut it out of your leg yourself or, like a lot of ways that you could make it worse. Um, Having a crappy marriage, you could solve it. You could feel better about it. You could tolerate it. You could stay miserable. You could get worse. Um, Goodness, just anything that comes up, one of those things is going to happen. And that feels a little bit reductionist, but it also feels, like you're organizing the junk drawer a little bit. Like, we know one of those things is going to happen. And if you go through and you're like, well, I can't solve it, there's no way I'm going to feel better about it. Out of the other three options, maybe I do just need to practice acceptance and willingness and like, this is what I'm in right now, and I'm not going to fight it or fight my reactions to it.
So someone said it sounds like you can do one to three at the same time. So maybe like solve a little bit, feel better about a little bit, tolerate a little bit.
Absolutely. And this isn't like a one and done kind of thing. So in this situation, on one day, you're going to be like, oh, this isn't that big of a deal. And the next day, you're tired and you're like, this son of a gun, blah, 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 blah. And then the next day, you're going to make it worse by telling somebody you're going to quit. And then the next day, you're going to be like, no, I'm going to solve this. I'm going to da da da. Like in any given moment, you're going to go from like, okay, I'm going to solve this. Oh, no, I'm going to feel better about it. Oh, 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 oh. So that's a really good point of like, you're going to bounce from all 5 of these different options, kind of like the stages of grief, like the stages of problem solving. You're going to hit on all of them probably at some point or another. La, 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 la. This isn't a problem. I'm denying it. Oh, this is a problem. I can't do anything about it. I'm accepting it. Oh, look, today I'm going to see the brighter side of it. If you think about like fibromyalgia or chronic pain or autoimmune disorders or, oh goodness, any of the stuff that we all, having parents who are not the parents that you want. Like all of these are really, really intense problems that you're going to go through these different levels of problem solving with. Okay, so that's that. I've added some contraptions to my stylus because I've lost it again this morning. So hopefully this will prevent me from losing it one more time. And thank you all for chatting too. Yes, those are good points. So we still have 10 minutes left. Y'all in the chat, do you have any questions? And otherwise, I think we can do Wise Mind in 10 minutes, which is kind of a nice intro to mindfulness.
True.
Okay. I hate using the whiteboard so much because I don't know.
I don't think the whiteboard records.
Oh, really?
I feel like when I've watched Zooms, like you only see the speaker.
Okay.
But I could be
Well, I
wrong.
know it was showing the PowerPoint in the last one.
Okay. Because it was your screen. Oh, no, but you're the speaker. So if it's showing your screen and you're the speaker, it probably would show the whiteboard.
We'll see. And yes, the sessions are for people to refer back to or to show other people or whatever. They are kept on there actually aren't any up because the first one I took down to edit a little piece and the second one was such a cluster that I have to redo it. But theoretically, they will be kept on my YouTube channel, which is, I don't know what the direct link to it is. I don't think that I have a direct link, but if you search the studio Stephanie Johnston, then you'll find it. And I have some other videos up there that I put up pre-pandemic with my pre-pandemic face. It's a bizarre look of like, oh, how has Stephanie changed over the years? She's gotten really tired. That's what's happened to Stephanie.
She's been pandemicified, as we all have.
Right. And I'm more than happy with my body that has survived the pandemic. Yes. Hannah, do you mind typing that into the chat? Okay, so real quickly, Wise Minds. So we all have this part of ourselves that is our emotion mind. I'm going to try to write clearer. This is where our emotions are kept. This is where we have joy and love and fear and sadness. This is what makes life worth living. This is what gives life interest and meaning and purpose. This is how we bond. This is how we have relationships. Our emotion mind. On an equal and opposite side, we have logic mind. Sometimes people call this reason mind or rational mind. I prefer logic because be reasonable or be rational can sometimes be used as like a crappy insult. And so logic to me is the most neutral word. Your logic mind is all that prefrontal cortex stuff that we were just using of math and spelling and how to do your taxes or how to get up and get dressed and go to the kitchen and get a drink. Like that all requires thinking, planning, problem solving, logic. In this intersection of this Venn diagram is wise minds. Go ahead.
I posted something about Squarespace. That was the wrong thing. It copied and pasted. But the YouTube underneath is the link to her page.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there's the link. And if you need to search it, just the studio Stephanie Johnston will pop it up. So in the book, the intersection of emotion and logic is wise mind. So wise mind is, we don't always need to stay in wise mind. It's fine to move over into emotion mind when you're playing with your kids or you're making art or you're bonding with your husband. Great, like be mostly over in emotion mind. And it's fine to move over into logic mind when you need to get a homework assignment done or when you need to figure out how to do a pros and cons. And some people live in one or the other more often. I tend to be more of an emotional person, like, meh, logic, smogic, math, just not my bag. And there's fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, the problem gets when we go completely over to one side or another and we get really into the far reaches of extremity. Sorry, I'm trying to find where this is in our book. Wise Mind is
Wise
on
mind's
page
50.
50. There you go. So, wise mind is just the wisdom of both of these things together. Our society often really, really, really supports logic mind. So, if you think about like who lives in logic mind, this is like scientists, cops, accountants, lawyers, doctors. Um, Way over here, you get into like Spock or Sheldon.
Sheldon from,
I don't know, that show where
I don't know, I can't think of
the
it.
Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like autism a little bit, having trouble like processing any emotions, having a really cold face, like having a flat affect, really having trouble bonding with people. It is a very unhealthy thing to not have any emotions at all. When you get really over here, you also get sick. This is OCD. This is perfectionism. This is some eating disorders, so like restriction, um, anorexia. Over here, you would get into more of like a binge, and then going back and forth would be a binge purge kind of thing. Um, so perfectionism, OCD, this can get into just some really strong, like unrelenting depression. Depression that is not situational, that's not because a sad thing happened, but just because you have no feeling. Depression is actually just apathy. It's no feeling. It's like losing all sense of taste. It's a globby oatmeal after you've eaten an enormous Thanksgiving meal. It's just like, ugh, well, no, thank you. Nothing. Whereas sadness is a very healthy emotion. You lost something, you're sad, you're grieving, you're weeping, you're experiencing sadness is is not really the same thing as depression. It can lead to it, but it's different. But just like being too far over here and being a robot, there's a little TV robot. Merp. Being too far over here is also a problem. So over here, you turn into just a scary bear. You're running on emotional instincts only. Your brain has flown out the window. You are in mama bear mode. You're in fight or flight or freeze or fawn. Um, this would be like, so healthy emotional people would be like artists or teachers or therapists or musicians or actors. So like Robin Williams would be over here. But who is that guy? Was it Charlie Sheen? The one that
Mm-hmm.
did like the tiger blood stuff? Like
Yeah.
that's too far over. Like you're way over there. That's too much. Um, this is panic attacks. This is doing really impulsive behaviors. because it's miserably uncomfortable to be this dysregulated. This is where your body is just freaking out. Your emotion is at 100. You are rageful. You are breaking stuff. You are crying and screaming and freaking out and just losing your mind. Not healthy. Either extreme is not healthy. So we just want to balance in the middle and stay out of the deep, deep valley and stay out of the high, high mountain. We'll get into how this can be flipped on its head and looked at as a mountain and a valley and a next time. We'll do mountain valley next time. How do I stop this? Sorry, I moved my stuff around. There we go. Stop share. All right. So, any other questions in the chat? Yes, the window of tolerance. So exactly. So, the window of tolerance is wise mind. So you want to expand wise mind so you have more emotions and more logic. Like you want your wise mind place to be a very big window of tolerance where you can be both logical and emotional and balance on that teeter totter. So everything in dialectics is this teeter totter. And if we go all the way up to, or we go all the way down, I guess, to emotions, that's trouble. If logic is totally winning over and you have no emotions and no social connection and it's pure just robot, that's trouble. And so it's this constant balancing act of having emotions with some logic, having logic with some emotions, being a scientist who also can empathize, being an artist who also can pay their bills, like having this nice teeter totter balance of both in this window of tolerance in Wise Mind. Okay. All right, y'all. Hannah, do you have anything else?
So someone said I signed up for the 29th session and tried to pay my money.
I have no idea, but I will go in there and look. I think that there's a problem too on the codes, the meeting ID codes. I gotta go and fix some stuff. So don't worry about any of that.
What I would say is that so to access the wise mind, that is when you're being mindful. So when we're being mindful and we're connected to the present moment, we're going to be able to access our wise mind more effectively than when we're stuck in rational mind or reasonable mind or emotion mind.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are a lot of different ways that we can get into wise mind, and mindfulness is one of the direct paths to balancing both logic and emotion. All right, guys. Thank you for showing up, y'all live folks. And anybody who is watching in internet land, feel free to add comments or questions and we will
subscribe, leave a comment.
Right. I care so little about all of this, y'all newfangled kids. Like, it is all I can do to figure out how to push record and then hopefully upload it later. So, yeah. Hannah, you'll have to make like a like and subscribe button and like do all the fancy cool kid stuff. Anyways, bye everybody. See y'all next week. We will talk about the Mountain Valley then, which just kind of explains Wise Mind in a little bit more detail, and then we'll get deep into mindfulness.